Imagine a time when the sun set on one of the greatest empires in history, a civilization that once spanned 3 continents and boasted a culture that influenced the course of Western civilization. Today we embark on a journey to understand the collapse of the Roman Empire, a complex saga woven through centuries of triumph and turmoil. As we delve into this epic narrative, I want you to consider what lessons can we learn from the fall of such a monumental empire, and how do these lessons resonate in our own lives today? The Roman Empire at its height was a marvel of engineering, governance, and culture. It brought forth advancements in law, architecture, and philosophy, creating a legacy that still echoes through time. But the seeds of its decline were sown long before the final curtain fell. We begin our exploration by examining the internal factors that contributed to the empire's slow disintegration. A critical factor was political instability. Imagine living in a time when emperors were frequently assassinated and power changed hands like a game of musical chairs. It will be 235 CE and 284 CE. The Roman Empire experienced the crisis of the 3rd century, marked by rapid changes in leadership, often through violence and military coups. During this chaotic period, the empire faced significant external threats, particularly from Germanic tribes and Persian forces, which further strained its resources and military capabilities.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
As we reflect on this, let's ask ourselves, what happens to a society when its leaders are in constant turmoil? How does this instability affect the daily lives of its citizens? The Roman populace found itself in a state of uncertainty and fear, undermining trust in the central authority. This growing discontentment paved the way for regional leaders to rise in prominence, eroding the once unified power of the emperor. In this environment, loyalty shifted from the empire to local leaders, marking the beginning of a fragmented political landscape. Another vital element in the empire's decline was economic turmoil. Picture a vast network of trade routes crumbling under the weight of inflation and heavy taxation. The Roman economy, heavily reliant on agriculture and slave labor, faced severe challenges due to crop failures and natural disasters. As inflation skyrocketed, the currency lost its value, causing widespread discontent among the populace. Farmers struggled to meet the demands of an ever-increasing tax burden, leading to a decline in agricultural productivity. The gap between the wealthy elite and the struggling lower classes widened, creating social unrest that echoed through the streets of Rome. This economic strife raises an essential question: how do economic disparities influence societal stability? How can a civilization endure when its citizens are divided by wealth and access to resources? The social fabric of the empire began to fray as discontent simmered among the lower classes, leading to protests and uprisings against the ruling elite. So in this way, the economic decline not only weakened the empire's financial foundation, but also eroded the trust between rulers and their subjects. As we delve deeper, we can't ignore the impact of military decline. Once the pride of Rome, the military began to weaken due to a combination of factors. Overextension of military resources strained the army, making it increasingly difficult to defend the empire's vast borders. The Roman military, once feared and respected, faced challenges recruiting soldiers. Many were drawn from the very barbarian tribes that threatened Roman territories, leading to loyalty issues within the ranks. Imagine the once mighty legions now struggling to maintain cohesion in the face of external threats. The reliance on mercenaries created vulnerabilities, allowing invasions by groups like the Visigoths and Vandals to succeed, further contributing to the empire's fragmentation. With these internal pressures mounting, we must consider the external threats that played a pivotal role in the empire's downfall. Barbarian invasions became a defining characteristic of the late Roman Empire. The Visigoths, driven by a combination of desperation and opportunity, breached the walls of Rome in 410 CE. A shocking event that symbolized the empire's diminishing power. This act of aggression prompted further incursions and territorial losses, forcing the Roman military to stretch itself thin, attempting to defend multiple fronts. At this point, let's reflect on the broader implications of these invasions. What does it mean for a civilization when it can no longer protect its own borders? The psychological impact of these invasions created a pervasive sense of fear and helplessness among the populace. The sack of Rome marked not just a military defeat, but a profound cultural and psychological blow that shattered the illusion of invincibility that the empire had long maintained. As we explore the timeline leading to the empire's ultimate demise, we encounter the deposition of Romulus Augustulus in 476 CE, often regarded as the symbolic end of the Western Roman Empire. Odoacer, a Germanic chieftain, seized power, sending the imperial insignia to Constantinople. This event raises significant questions about identity and governance. What happens to a civilization when its foundational symbols of power are dismantled? The fall of Rome was not merely a political transition. It represented a seismic shift in the cultural landscape of Europe, marking the end of an era and the beginning of new societal structures. Despite this apparent collapse, it's essential to recognize the resilience of Roman culture. The period following the fall of the Western Roman Empire saw the emergence of new social orders, characterized by feudal systems and localized governance. While centralized power disintegrated, the remnants of Roman law, infrastructure, and cultural practices persisted, shaping the foundations of medieval Europe. This notion challenges the narrative of complete decline, suggesting that the collapse of the Roman Empire was, in many ways, a transformation rather than an absolute fall. As we conclude this first part of our exploration into the collapse of the Roman Empire, we've journeyed through the myriad of internal and external factors that contributed to this monumental event. We've seen how political instability, economic decline, military overextension, and barbarian invasions converged to reshape the destiny of one of history's greatest civilizations. So let's continue our journey, delving into the cultural, social, and religious transformations that emerged from the ashes of the Roman Empire and how they laid the groundwork for the future of Europe. As we delve into the aftermath of the collapse of the Roman Empire, we encounter a landscape marked not only by disintegration but also by profound cultural and social transformations. The fall of Rome was not an abrupt ending, rather it set in motion a complex series of changes that would shape Europe for centuries to come. Picture this, a once unified empire, now fragmented, where local leaders rise to power and cultural identities begin to redefine themselves. This transformation raises essential questions. What happens to a culture when its central authority disappears? How do people find meaning and connection in a world that has changed so dramatically? In the wake of the empire's collapse, Europe experienced a significant shift in governance and social structures. The disintegration of centralized authority led to the rise of feudalism, a system characterized by local lords exercising control over their territories in exchange for military service and loyalty. Imagine a landscape where local rulers held sway over their lands, offering protection to the serfs and peasants in return for labor and loyalty. This feudal system created a patchwork of allegiances as power was redistributed away from a distant emperor towards local leaders. As we reflect on this shift, consider the implications for community and identity. In the absence of a strong central authority, how did individuals define their sense of belonging? The loyalty of the people began to shift from the concept of a vast empire to the ties of local kinship and community. This localized governance forged new social identities, where people found security in their immediate surroundings, rather than in the distant halls of imperial power. In parallel with these political changes, we must also examine the cultural transformations that unfolded during this period. Contrary to the notion of a cultural decline, the aftermath of the Roman collapse is often characterized by a blending of Roman traditions with emerging barbarian cultures. As tribes settled in former Roman territories, they brought with them new customs, beliefs, and practices. This intermingling of cultures facilitated a dynamic evolution of identity, challenging the binary view of Roman versus barbarian. Consider the role of Christianity during this transformative time. As the empire fractured, Christianity emerged as a unifying force, providing a moral framework and sense of community amidst the chaos. The Church played a pivotal role in preserving knowledge, culture, and traditions from the Roman era. Monasteries became centers of learning and preservation, safeguarding ancient texts and fostering intellectual life during the early Middle Ages. This shift raises profound questions. How does faith influence cultural identity? In what ways can a shared belief system provide cohesion in times of uncertainty? In exploring the social dynamics of this period, we encounter the challenges posed by economic decline and recovery. Initially, the collapse of centralized power led to economic upheaval characterized by disrupted trade routes and a contraction of urban centers. The collapse of the Roman economy resulted in widespread poverty, famine, and social discontent. The reliance on agriculture became paramount as communities sought self-sufficiency amid the chaos. This period of economic decline compels us to reflect: how does economic hardship shape social relationships and priorities? In a world of scarcity, what values become paramount for survival? Yet, amid this turmoil, we observe a gradual recovery. As local economies began to reestablish themselves, new trade networks emerged, often centered around agrarian communities. This shift marked the beginning of a more localized economic system, where trade was conducted on a smaller scale, fostering interdependence among neighboring communities. Imagine the resilience of these societies adapting to their circumstances and forging new paths to sustainability. This transformation underscores a vital lesson. Even in the face of adversity, human ingenuity and adaptability can pave the way for recovery and renewal. This continuity prompts us to ask, what legacies do we leave behind, and how do they shape future generations? The remnants of the Roman Empire provided not only physical infrastructure, but also a cultural framework that would inform the development of medieval Europe. The fusion of Roman and barbarian cultures led to the emergence of new languages, artistic expressions, and social practices that reflected this complex interplay of influences. As Christianity continued to spread, it significantly reshaped the cultural landscape of Europe. The Church became a central institution offering stability and moral guidance in a time of upheaval. And the influence of Christianity extended beyond spiritual matters. It permeated art, literature, and politics. The emergence of Christian leaders such as bishops and popes provided a counterbalance to the power vacuums left by the decline of the imperial authority. This raises an important question. How can a belief system serve as both a source of comfort and a means of authority in a shifting societal landscape? The role of the Church in governance during this period cannot be understated. As local leaders rose to power, the Church often served as a unifying force, providing a sense of continuity amid fragmentation. Through the establishment of church courts and ecclesiastical law, the Church helped to maintain order and social cohesion. This blend of religious and political authority laid the groundwork for the feudal system that would dominate the medieval era, where lords, vassals, and the Church intertwined their loyalties and responsibilities. As we continue to explore the transformations of the post-Roman world, let's consider the impact of education and literacy. The collapse of centralized authority led to a decline in formal education and a loss of literacy among the general populace. However, the Church preserved educational institutions, particularly in monasteries, where monks transcribed texts and educated new generations of clergy. This preservation of knowledge highlights the importance of institutions in maintaining cultural continuity. Reflect on this. How crucial is education in shaping society, especially during times of crisis? The relationship between culture and identity further evolved as various tribes settled within the former Roman territories. The merging of cultures resulted in the formation of new identities that reflected both Roman traditions and local customs. As tribes adopted Christianity, they often incorporated elements of their own practices into their newfound faith. This blending of traditions not only facilitated the acceptance of Christianity, but also fostered a rich cultural tapestry that characterized medieval Europe. Consider the significance of this cultural blending. What happens when diverse traditions intersect? How does this interaction foster new expressions of identity? The evolution of languages, art, and customs during this period underscores the dynamic nature of culture and the human capacity for adaptation. The legacy of the Roman Empire, therefore, is not merely a story of decline, it is a narrative of resilience, transformation, and rebirth. As we approach the conclusion of this segment, let's also examine the role of historical memory in shaping perceptions of the Roman Empire's collapse. So the stories told about the fall of Rome have been influenced by various political, cultural, and ideological perspectives throughout history. Early historians like Edward Gibbon framed the narrative of decline as a moral failing, emphasizing the internal corruption and decadence that led to the empire's fall. In contrast, later interpretations, such as the parenthesis, highlight the continuity of Roman civilization, arguing that the collapse was not an end but rather a metamorphosis into new forms of governance and culture. This historiographical evolution prompts us to reflect on our understanding of history itself. How do narratives shape our perceptions of the past? What lessons can we draw from the stories we tell? As we dissect these varying perspectives, we come to appreciate the complexity of historical events and the multifaceted nature of cultural identity.